Hey guys, well, you got to hang on to your hats for this next episode because it's an amazing one with one of our dearest friends, Lance Essihos. And we talk about all sorts of things from surrender to forgiveness to acceptance. But one of the main themes is adversity. And we get to hear this beautiful man's story through adversity and overcoming and finding acceptance in a new way of living.
And it's something that we can all resonate with. So his story and the other stories that we're speaking to within the podcast is something that I think that we can all reflect on in our own lives and how it plays a role in how we see ourselves, how we see our world, and how we even move through our world. And mainly how we define success too, and like what we want for ourselves and the potential that we have. So it's such a good conversation that goes into like a lot of different places. So it's really one that you want to spend some time listening to over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. So tune into it. It's with Lance Essihos. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Health Ignited, where we're igniting your health freedoms through amazing conversations with real people, living real lives, and doing great things in the world. So yeah.
Super exciting today because we are interviewing somebody, for me anyways, is like a little brother. I don't know why, but the moment I met him, it's like I wanted to take him under my wing. And every time I see him succeed, I just feel so happy for him. And I'm excited for the conversation that we're going to have. I think it's going to be really great.
Yeah, definitely. So this gentleman, Lance Essihos, came into our life a couple of years ago, and it's been a blessing ever since. It's, like you said, a little brother, a brother. There's nothing but gratitude for this gentleman and everything that he's strived for. He's created an amazing podcast, an amazing brand. He's going to be launching his book in the next few months. He's creating all sorts of magic in the world with his message of adversity. So with that, Lance, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you so much. It's so nice to see you and connect again. And yeah, it's been such a blessing, meeting you guys. I think it was back in 2018. And yeah, just everything that's come since then has just been amazing. So I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah. So if you're watching the video here, you can see this shining glow off this man's face. He's spending some time down in Costa Rica with some amazing individuals. But it's not just the sun that's shining on him. It's that spark of inspiration and purpose that exists within him. And it's constantly birthing even more. So on the topic of adversity, give us a little backstory for the listeners. What drove you to that word, and why are you so passionate about speaking about this topic?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I feel like my whole life has been around overcoming adversity. I, from a young age, moving across the country, leaving my mom and my big family with my dad, we kind of left on a solo mission, me and him, which broke my heart. Having to leave my mom at 11 was really hard. And I never really knew what was going to come out of that. And from there, moving to Victoria, my dad had met a woman with 4 kids. And it was like the stepmom from hell. She put myself through a lot of really challenging times, my family and all that stuff. And around that time, just before when we first moved, I got bullied pretty bad in my school in grade 7. I went from being the cool kid to kind of the loser kid. And I didn't know how to really handle that. And it was really challenging. So there was a lot of like emotional stuff brewing at that age. And, because of a lot of the work that I do now, I'm addressing that little boy because I wanted to figure out, why did things go so squirrely, to drinking and drugs and partying and all that, which I'll get into. But it really starts with that point, because I had such a loving family growing up. And I really believe that if it wasn't for them from like 0 to 10, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now. So I've really addressed like that area as being the point where things kind of got out of whack. And as through my teen years, I was just I never felt really safe at home. Like there was just so much crap going on and emotion, like fighting and, dealing with this woman causing our family a lot of stress because my dad left her. And trying to make it in hockey as well at the same time. It was just chaos. Like I was just always going through this emotional stress of family stuff and fighting and I'm trying to play hockey. And it was really, it was really, really tough. And, I learned a lot from it. It was like my greatest teacher. Now, when I look back, it's like, I'm grateful for it. But at the time it was tough. And when I found alcohol and that kind of thing, as we all do, it allowed me to sort of step into this like new persona, this, oh, I don't feel as stressed anymore. I don't have to, I can be somebody else. And I really got into that feeling of like, of enjoying that feeling of escaping, which led me working in the bars for many years, because it was like I could almost numb myself from that. And alcohol allowed me to really, as a social lubricant. There was a lot of fun times, some of the best times of my life, but also a lot of really dark times. So, I carried on through that path for a while, working in bars, traveling around, moved to Australia for 5 years. And I was really battling my own demons all the time. Like, I knew I needed to get out of that kind of lifestyle. I knew it, but I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to do. And I wasn't very close with my family, which was challenging. And then, the big thing that happened, the real reason what, sparked the podcast, University of Adversity, was, losing my younger brother to suicide and my dad to cancer within, 1 year's, just over 1 year's time. And, my dad was staying with us at the time. I found out the news. I got a call at work. I had to come home and, tell my dad. And, the whole thing was just, it was like out of a movie. My life is like out of this bad movie for a while. And that whole thing, and then losing my dad, finding out he had cancer within, I had to fly back from Sydney, Australia. I had like 2 days to basically get home back to Victoria. I saw him kind of decline, and that was it. So those are kind of, those are sort of the things that I've had to deal with in my life. It was, they've been very challenging, but, I really look at them from an empowered perspective, because they have empowered me to really step into the work that I do and understand that, we have a choice when we're faced with this stuff, with the adversity, with the struggles, and I've really learned now to sit back and like ask the question, like, what can I learn from this? And it's really challenging in the moment, but that's the only thing we have, is that choice, that decision. How are we going to react? So that word has just been something that I had it intuitively hit me. And I was like, this word really like is fitting for my life, what I've been through. And, before you know it, the things just kind of turned into what they did, and the podcast started, and there we go. It's just been a journey ever since. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story. It's definitely full of adversity. And, when we look hindsight, especially as we're growing and helping others, I find we do a lot of our own healing through that work, and going back to that inner child, even at 11, even though it's preteen and you're kind of moving into like becoming a man and everything. But when the nurturing was there present before that time, I think that creates a beautiful foundation. And there's so much going on in like the physical body. There's so much going on in your world that perspective then is going to be different than perspective now. So when you're working with individuals or speaking to or doing your own work, how can you help support someone when they're in that lens? And because you've obviously, even the way you're speaking to her right now, have done that work. You can speak to the choice in that moment. And I think we need adversity in our lives to grow. I think that's actually something that's missing in like the generation to come. It's because we've gone in the opposite direction, where we're like holding our children so close that we're not even allowing them to feel moments of pain and all of that. So when somebody's stuck in a cycle of seeing their pain as something that's not going to serve them, like how can we support them there?
Yeah, I really think it's just really the understanding and acceptance that their story is okay. Like it's okay, like we always think that our story is different than everybody else. And, I really think that leads to a lot of really, stuff like suicide, because people feel like they can't relate. And I just really say like, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Your story is your story. It doesn't have to define you, but it's really just an acceptance, fully accepting your story And really, like, I've been doing a lot of shadow work lately, and the really understanding, especially when I was in ayahuasca, what that even means, what it really means to fully love yourself. And to fully love yourself, you got to really fully embrace the shadow, the dark, the light. All of it is just as important, as you guys know. But it's easy for us to push that away and just focus on the bright side of everything. But what happens is that stuff keeps showing up. And I really think even before people get there, just like accept your story fully. It's okay. Like, it's all right. And I think like that's going to be part of the book too. It's just like connecting with people to know that whatever they've gone through, it's okay. But in order to move forward and to create a new story, we have to accept the old one. We don't have to have it driving us, but we have to accept it, that it's there, acknowledge it, but it doesn't have to be the driver. And I think that's what's important. And I believe, adversity reveals character within us. And it's one of these things where I just find it's easy to say, oh yeah, look at that adversity and just go for it. But it's like, okay, well, wait a second. Like, there's a lot of stories that are being told about our past that stop us from that. And a lot of it is resistance of the story itself. Right. And I really this is stuff that I've worked on in my own life. That's why I talk about it, is because it's like, all right, well, what story am I allowing to control me here? Because it's all bullshit, it's all just stories. But let's invite it in. Let's have it sit down with us. Let's it's okay. And I think that is the first step. And then we can be like, okay, now that we fully acknowledge, accept what we've gone through, now what do we do? Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's the first way that people can start to get a better understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a powerful awareness, I think, that comes with that, acceptance. And I think so many of us get stuck in the past and just keep referencing what life used to be like. And it's so hard to actually be in the moment. Yeah. Be with those feelings truly, because we are stuck in, especially with loss. I mean, speaking of your father, your brother, like, it's easy to just want to hang on to, that experience of them in the past and not be able to move forward because we haven't addressed the moment, right? We haven't addressed those core, pains that are there. I can hear you.
Yeah.
He knows when I have something brewing.
I love you guys. I love when I see your guys' outtakes too. It's like those things are just absolute gold.
That's the intuition of being with a partner for a long time.
I love you guys so much.
Oh my God. Well, what I wanted to speak to there is when there's
loss. Mean what you wanted to cut off there?
When I wanted to cut you off, is that I don't think as a culture we're taught that grief is okay. And we're not taught, like you were talking about the shadow, that your shadow is okay. So even because if you look back to like young kids, like when they get hurt, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just smile. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Don't cry. Yeah. Like we're constantly putting that into their psyche that don't hurt, like run away from the pain. But instead, what if we like sat with the pain? What if we really grieved and grieved and grieved so that we can move through it instead of like trying to always look in the other direction?
Yeah, it's no wonder why we jump into alcohol, drugs, or prescription medications, right? Because we're not comfortable with feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because recently, my grandma was 94. She had a great life. She passed away, but so my mom was obviously upset, right? And she was crying, and part of me wanted to be like, "Oh, Mom, it's okay, don't cry." But I'm like, no. I was like, just cry, like just let it out. Mm-hmm. Like you just lost somebody, grieve that. You honor that, honor all the feels, the good, the bad, the ugly, honor that. And I think we're exactly what you said. We're not told to do that. Like that's not, I mean, obviously there's a time and place for that. You can't be doing that all the time, but there has to be an intentional moment where you grieve, mm-hmm. where it's like, all right, I'm not like, this is really getting in the way. And like, we have to honor that and cry and get angry. Because it's not going to pass through us if it does. Like it's not going to be. We got to bring that to the light sometimes, and we're conditioned the opposite.
Mm-hmm. There's a great quote when we were driving by a church one day with a message on the side. It was something along the lines of.
Yeah. Did it again.
Did you want to say?
Grief is an emotion, or love that just has no place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think of
Beautiful.
even like grief as like almost even a remembrance of love too, you know. And I think that we put so much heaviness on, yeah, on the judgment of our grieving and how it's going and maybe how it should be different and whatnot. So I mean, these are universal concepts. You know, the people that tune into the podcast are often, you know, relating this into their health and whatnot. And you've gone through a transformation of healing in many different ways. You know, you brought up plant medicine and whatnot too. So how have you used the mindset of adversity to help you like be this badass human biohacker, you know, changing diet, doing the carnivore thing, you know, fulfilling your purpose by listening to that call to move down to Costa Rica for a while. So all of these things, you know, play out onto how you create purpose and happiness and joy and love and healing in your life. So how have you applied some of those concepts to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you know, I've just like with you when you introduced me to Kundalini yoga for the first time, and you know that was so powerful, and that's always stuck with me as far as like just different modalities that can really help. And I've tried a lot of the things, you know, the breath work, meditation, they've all had such a big part, you know. And I'm not one that's like, oh, you got to go do plant medicine. It's like you got to be called to it. But I felt like where I was at in my life, it was like the natural, where I just felt this deep knowing that I needed to sit with this medicine. You know, I had this deep knowing that if I want to hit my potential, there's something there. And that is so important to me. And your intuition speaks to you, right? And I've this one thing that I can say that I've been really good at in my life. You know, I sucked at a lot of things in my life, but this was one of these things that I was really good at, was honoring that intuitive impulse, you know, like to sell everything and move here, that like, this is crazy. What are you doing? I'm like, I have to do this. Like, it's just like one of these things that I've always done it. If it feels like I've been talking about this a lot. It's like you get those impulses. If it feels like a 10, a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, you got to do it. You got to take action some way or another. And there's these like, you know, impulses we get that aren't as strong, you know, 4 or 5 out of 10 that you can take or leave it. But I've always really acted on those ones, even though they feel very scary. You know, there's a lot of adversity, a lot of stuff that comes from doing that sometimes, because you know, you got to really get uncomfortable. And I just have known that there's always going to be something that comes out of that risk, that, you know, jumping into that. And as one of the lessons I learned when I was on the medicine too, is like to learn to trust yourself. Everything is going to be okay. Because again, in our society, it's like we're told, like a lot of people don't trust how resilient they are. They don't trust that they can get through things. Right? You guys do, you know, with fasting and everything, it's like it's a spiritual practice, and people have to have a trust, somewhat of trust in themselves that it's going to be okay. You're going to get through that stuff, right? And I think that what I've been learning is like to really honor that more and more and more, is that I can do this. I can do this. And you know, it's not always easy, but it's what I've really been trying to focus on, is like knowing that if something is going to be challenging, that I can get through it. And on the other side of that is going to be some sort of reward. The universe is going to wink at me and be like, you did it. Good job. Like, you could handle it. But I feel like when we don't do that, when we don't honor that, it's almost like that feeling of the unknown is almost worse than what actually happens on the other side of it. So, hope that's an answer to your question. It's kind of all over the place, but
No, it truly is. Like,
yeah.
I like that you said it in that way. And I think back to just listening to your story. You know, you moved to Australia. You know, you commit to the Fit for Service program. You jump into a Kundalini men's camp. You jump into the fasting. Like you truly are someone who's living from that place of trust. And it's really, and it's again fun for us to watch because we're big fans of yours, of course.
Wow.
But on that note, you know, I'm so curious to hear, like, because obviously you got a chance to interview some amazing people and that have incredible stories of their own adversity. And I imagine there's probably some similar themes, like trust being one of them, as they move through this journey. So can you think of like some similar themes that you've heard from, like, I mean, you have like 300 and some odd podcast interviews discussing the topic of diversity. If anybody knows about it, it's going to be you.
Yeah. We still got to get Dr. Sonya on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been meaning to do that, by the way. Anyways, yeah. So, you know what the thing is that I've really noticed is that it's belief. It's like the people that get to where they want to get to just believe in themselves so much, and they don't allow those voices, the limited beliefs, to stop them. That's really it. And they're just willing to risk the failure because it's not really failing. You're just, who says that failure is feedback? Is that Tony Robbins? I'm not sure, but it really is. Because if it doesn't work out, well, that just means that you'll get closer to something else. And I find the most successful people, and not even just in like business or whatever, it's just the ability to fully believe in what you're doing. Again, and that comes down to trust and surrender also. Everything comes back to the same message. Mm-hmm. And even though before, we were talking about this book campaign earlier, and it's like, I was doubting myself so much. There was so much doubt that I've had to live with in my life that I'd had to be like, I literally have to talk to myself, be like, no, thank you, ego. I'm good. I'm safe. I'm good. I got this. But there's like this thing that's like, well, who are you to think that you can do this? Like, who are you to write a book? Like, who are you, and this and that, and these voices. And because, when I interview these people, I still, I compare myself, and I'm thinking, well, how could I ever be there? How could I ever be there? And really, we all have it in us. We all have it in us. It's just, it's whether we believe it or not. It's our level of belief that really can push us forward. But we allow ourselves to listen to the voices or the people that the majority of people that don't ever, fulfill their goals, is because they're scared to like ignore that voice and honor their truth. And I really believe that has been the main theme, is always the people that really win in life fully believe in themselves that they can do it. And if that takes them to the thing that they think it does, great. If it doesn't, it takes them somewhere else. And that belief will introduce you to the right person, or take you to the right event, or do the right whatever. But that is really the thing that I have found to be the theme. And I'm trying, I'm really, really working on that at myself every single day, because that's not an easy thing to do. And, it seems to be the theme of the people that create the success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back to the retreat that we were all at in Mexico, we did a lot of work around masks and old patterns and beliefs, and how we pile all these masks on to survive, right? Because that's kind of what the brain is wired to do. So we're creating all these things so that we survive our moments that show up, and it becomes our identity. And then we're defending our identity, and we lose, like you were saying, that trust, that inner voice that is always there. We've never lost it, that soul that's always speaking to us, but we silence it with the noise of the world and the noise of that, the negative mind being a little bit louder. And I think when we can start discerning, because I think the beliefs stay with us, because we're surrounded by it, but we get better at discerning what voice is true and which one is trying to push us into a direction that's not going to serve our highest goal that we have in this lifetime. So I feel like you're getting in that space where you're able to do that, and an experience with plant medicine sometimes can really empower that voice, or our ability to see through all the crap and really tune into that voice. I don't know if that's the experience that you had.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, so dive in. Tell us about your plant medicine.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to just talk about that retreat and how much of an impact that had in my life, because that retreat, and then right after was Tony Robbins. Like that was so powerful. That was just like, that completely changed my entire life. That like chunk of time, I got out of a relationship. I got like all this stuff shifted, and that was so amazing. And I remember that mask exercise, like, burning the masks, and it's so, there's so many masks that we're wearing. It's like, if we're not honoring our truth, we're just listening to someone else's story. It's just a mask of somebody else. It's not even real. And that is so important. I forgot about that exercise. So thank you for that. But plant medicine, yeah. So ayahuasca was just, it was, I mean, it was just unbelievable. I sat with it 4 nights, and the third night was probably the most important night that I've ever experienced. Is that I saw and felt my full potential for the first time. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I try to explain this story, and it's just so hard to quantify in words. But like, you know how Dr. Joe Dispenza or even Bruce Lipton, they talk about, think about, put yourself in the position of already having the things that you want in the present moment, right? And it's sometimes easier to say said than done. I was in that position. Like, I was literally, I was shown what it's like to feel that exact feeling of the success and the confidence and seeing myself for the first time ever in that position. That was so powerful to me, because it's what I needed in order to really tap into my true potential. Like, I saw and felt and had that inner knowing that it's already happened. It's just what I needed to see for it to like dissolve these voices. And now, like, when I don't believe in myself, I come back to that moment. And that's why plant medicine in this situation is so powerful, because it actually showed me something I'd never felt or saw. Intuitively, I knew a lot of the stuff we already know, but it was like pulling it out and being like, you know this, come on. Do I need me to show you even more? And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Thank you. She just showed me that you have it all. You just got to get out of your own way. And I was like, oh, I get it. And that night, it was just so powerful. The wave of energy that was through my body, it was just like nothing I've ever experienced before in my life. And, you know, connected to this like universal intelligence and life force energy, stuff that I've heard, but like I was really being shown and told of like, if you can create from this place of life force energy, if you create from this every day, you cannot fail. Like, you cannot fail in life if you create from that. You will have all the success. And it just made so much sense, because we can create from out of fear or doing things for other people and all the nonsense. But it's like, you know, you guys know this too, when you start your mornings, that creating that from, and you guys are great at it. I'm getting better at it, but like being able to really harness that in the morning and just like intentionally creating that from your life force energy. And that was just such a powerful experience. And then I remember that night going back to our rooms, I looked at myself in the mirror and I just saw myself differently. Like, I know it sounds wild to people if they've never done it, but I was like, wow, like you're really like I saw a different person. I saw what I would look like to somebody if I was a stranger and I was successful, if that makes sense. It was really, it was profound, because we don't see our own gifts sometimes. Somebody, you know how you see somebody like, don't you see, like, you're so talented here. Like, don't you see it? But sometimes people don't. Sometimes you have to tell them, and you're like, want to shake them because they don't see it. And I felt like for myself, I saw that for the first time, and I felt that for the first time. So that was, that in self, after that night, I was like, I never have to do this again. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm good. I wasn't going to do it the 4th night. She's like, you think so? And she reactivated me later. And I was like, I had some other really profound experiences that night. Like, but that was like the one that really, I feel like for the listeners, for maybe like skeptical about it, like that was what I needed. And since then, like things have just been like skyrocketing for me. So who knows, you know, it was what I felt what I needed to connect to. And, you know, I had such a deep inner call to go to that specific retreat, and I knew I just had to be there. So I know why now. I really do. So that's a little bit of the story.
I love it. And I think with any medicine, if you're tuned in, it gives you what you need and what you're really needing in that moment. So I love that story.
Yeah. Well, do you want to reiterate some of your story?
Well, I didn't do it for 4 days.
No, we did it.
Yeah, it was just one day. And for me, my big story has been a lack of love for myself, because it wasn't necessarily given to me. growing up, and that's all I felt in those 6 to 8 hours. And it's that same feeling of like that connection, and like how everything is just, the universe is so connected. It's like everything, like the physical just dissolved, and there was this moment, like you're saying, it's really hard to articulate in words, like even the
Yeah.
colors and like the feeling around it. But it was like, it was her. It was like creation saying that I'm here. It's okay. You don't need to look for it outside of you. It's right here. And yeah, it was really beautiful, because I went into it very skeptical. Like I, being a yogi, and just and also like maybe more
A
rigid.
purist.
Oh, what?
A purist.
A purist, and like,
Mhm.
okay, I could do this with my breath. I don't need help from plants, even though we use herbs on a
Yeah.
daily basis to do other things, with our physical body. But I was like, oh, I don't need that. I can just do that without it. But it was
Mm.
such a gift. And so I think when the call is there, it will show up for you.
Mm-hmm. So you had this amazing experience, well, multiple amazing experiences on top of an infrastructure where you're already doing a lot of personal growth and personal work, and coming to terms with maybe some forgiveness of the past and some acceptance and moving forward. Now, when that voice talks to you, that voice of ego that tells you, "Hey, Lance, come on, you're not that special," or whatever that story is, like you don't deserve to express yourself in this kind of way. How is it quieter now? Like what's different for you with that voice?
That's such a good question. Um, that might be a question that I'm going to start asking people. It's such a good question. You know what, man? Like, if I'm being honest, it still shows up every single day. Like it still shows up, and it's just in knowing that it takes a lot of work to unravel that, and it just is what it is. It's like, well, what story do I believe to be true? Do I believe that story, or do I believe this one? And you know, I am really listening to the story that I want to create, and seeing the feedback that I'm getting from the universe for honoring that. Right? It's one thing when you're doing things and to not get anything, and things are continually going wrong and whatever, and you're like, whoa, I'm doing all the things. But like, for me, it was always been so worried about what other people think, and so just questioning my abilities so much that it stopped me from ever stepping into like the full potential of anything I've ever done. Whether it was hockey, whether it was being a bar manager, whether it was anything, I was always so close. And then I'm not good enough. Somebody's already done it. I'm just gonna, somebody's already there. And like, I just do my best to do the things, the meditations and the gratitude journaling, and really switch my daily to switch my perspective to be grateful the best I can. But it comes in waves. And if I need to, just like Tony Robbins, talks about switching your emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
If that comes up, then I'm like, okay, now's not the time to sit and process shadow work. I got to be on it. I got to like be on it. So what am I going to do? So I'll go do some workout or drink some water or whatever I need to do to get out of that funk, because usually it's just a funk. Right. And I guess that's the process of life every day, is how good are you at telling which story to tell today? Right. I mean, really, I find it hard to believe that not every single human on planet Earth has that same thing. And this is why you guys can probably relate too, is like, you talk to these people and they're successful. They're successful, but they're still human.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how much money you make, like how successful you're still going to you're still comparing yourself to somebody. You're still doing the things, you're still on social media, and it's still, it comes up for everybody. It really does. And I guess it's just really deciding what story you want to tell and how you want to tell it. Right.
Yeah. And I think it goes to the intention of that day or of that week or that month or that moment of like, what intention are you going in with? And that will form the personality that you're going to put forward. And then the action. So I think if we're all intentional in all the moments, then that's what's going to really help support being present and being our truest self. Because everybody has that shadow side. And like you were saying in the beginning, the light can't show up without the dark, right? So we're always kind of moving in and out of that. And that's okay. I think that's what we have to be okay with, is the flow between the two and choosing our moments. So on that topic, do you think that people can get addicted to adversity?
Yeah, I mean, and as in like they want to have that feeling of, what do you mean exactly? Like,
Yeah. So I think as a culture, we can sometimes sit in the seat of suffering because
right.
we are getting
Yeah.
something from it. And it could be something negative, but it can also be something positive, whether it's positive in a way where we're getting attention, support, or positive in a way where I'm going to suffer and then I'm going to do something and then I'm going to get a reward for it. And my business is going to go here, but I have to suffer first to get there. Like, can we skip that step after we've tuned in, or do people stay stuck in that place of like, well, I need this adversity and these lessons in order to grow?
Yeah, that's another great question.
I like that one too.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm like, man, these guys are asking better questions than I ask.
Not true. Not true.
Not true.
Yeah. You ask amazing questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes down to people that haven't done a lot of the work either, right? I think a lot of that subconscious stuff is stuck in there and they're just addicted to feeling like the victim all the time. There's a lot of people that just don't see the glass as half full, and it's not their fault. It's just that they're just, yeah, like they're addicted to the struggle. Not everything has to be a struggle. And this is a great point, because when you look at adversity or a challenge, like, this stuff is coming. So it's like, how do you look at it? Like what is your perspective on the thing itself? It's like, if you know that it's going to benefit you, if you know that on the other side you're going to win, well, then it's not even going to look like a struggle. It's not even going to be a hard way. It's not even going to seem hard, because you're kind of expecting it. But I think that there's people that get addicted to like, oh, it's got to be so hard in order for me to like to get to the next thing or whatever. And I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be. I think that that you can learn from people. And I think that's why it's important to have people's stories, so people can learn to not do the same thing that others people are doing, and so that they don't have to go through as much challenge. But I do think that people can, depending on where they're at with doing the amount of work on themselves, can definitely get addicted to like that feeling bad, or like it's got to be bad. It's, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of where you're meaning with that?
Totally, because it can happen on a subtle level too. And just using myself as an example, like I've seen my dad work hard ever since I've been born. Like, at one point he had 4 jobs, and like he's done really well, but he's worked to do really well. And then so when he sees us, I remember one point when we sold our place in Vancouver and moved out here, we had to stay with them for a month, and I'm sitting on the couch with my computer. He looks over at me, "Do you even work?" And I'm like,
yeah,
yes, mine looks different than yours, but
yeah.
I do work, and I do work hard, and my relationship to it is just different. But I still have that in me of like, when people ask me, how often do you go into the clinic? I'm like, 2 days a week. In my inside, I'm like, oh, it's only 2 days a week. So I think sometimes we feel like I had this story in my mind, in order to make money, I had to work like that. I had to suffer and like work so hard, like 6-7 days a week in order to get there.
That still shows up sometimes for me too, because I had to work so many hours in the bars to make money. And yeah, I mean, switching time for money, like you have to do this hard work. It's got to be this like grueling work to earn the money. It's like, I think that's just that's programmed with our parents' generation too, because that's kind of the way it was. And it's like, if you didn't work hard, you didn't earn it. And I just don't think that that doesn't necessarily mean anything these days. It's like, it's almost like work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of a definition of success too, because a lot of our drive forward, and I'm going to ask you on how your definition of success has changed since you've done your work and continue to do so. But I think a lot of that intentionality around, getting forward in life or being intentional really was revolving around making money, right? Because it was, you know, it is, and it always has been a way that we survive in the world that we're in, and then hopefully thrive. So I'm curious, because I'm imagine that a lot of your driving force, you know, maybe even earlier on in your career, was really about, you know, making money, being successful, being an entrepreneur. Like what does that definition look like to you now that you've had this more intimate relationship with the mother?
Yeah, it's just anything is possible. Like I really believe that anything is possible if we believe enough. And I guess I I have to do something that's fulfilling, and fulfilling to me is making impact in people's lives. Like it, you know, to know that I helped somebody get through something, or you know, I get a message saying, "Oh, I heard this episode with this and this. It really helped me." Like that's the, you know, that's it for me. And if I want to do that on a big scale, you know, like however I can help give back what I've gone through, or you know, allow other people what they've gone through and share that with somebody to be the bridge for them, that's it for me. And like that's successful. And you know, maybe I've thought, well, maybe I need to be more like money hungry driving. That's just not my, it's not my nature. I feel like building relationships and just doing all the things that feel good will create the wealth that we desire, or whatever it may be, you know. But for me, it's always I've noticed like it's the relationships, and it's just being just doing something that's fulfilling. And you know, another Tony Robbins comment is, you know, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And fulfillment, I mean, as you guys, I mean, the work you do, it's like helping somebody, and them saying that you helped them is the best thing that you could possibly hear. It's like, all right, I could quit today, I'm good, like thank you. Like what you, when you do something and somebody gets impacted from it, it's the best feeling. And you know, to be able to do that on a scale is really what it's all about.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm just thinking back to when we were, you know, first meeting each other in 2018. You're telling me some of the stories of the businesses that you were in the past, and it really was about. It was so interesting to see you in this sort of transition period where things were about, you know, this is a business I'm doing because it should be generating income, but my heart's just not in it.
Yeah.
And I just saw a man of integrity who really wanted to create impact and live an abundant life. But really, the driving force was more important for you, you know, even, you know, a few years ago. And I imagine that's probably always been with you. And I think that that's what's so great about the stories that you're sharing right now, because it really just comes back to that belief system. You know, knowing that everything's gonna be okay. You've got that trust. You've surrendered. You've moved into this place of allowance and acceptance, and it's really through integrity and a desire to make an impact in the world. And that's I mean, that's definitely you in a nutshell.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, something you said earlier that I loved, and I'm going to reflect on a post that you did recently on social media. I think it was you in the gym. It was a wicked picture. Lance is looking ripped in the gym, doing his hard work. And it was something along the lines of, I think you're talking about depression, or say mental health. And you're like, you know, when this is upon you, and I'm totally paraphrasing here, and I'll get you fill in the details, but when this is upon you, you know, there's some things that I like to do to check the boxes, you know, get some exercise, get outside, get in nature, drink some water, you know, eat good food, you know, because so quick are we to label ourselves as depressive, anxious, you know, addicted, the story that we keep perpetuating. But there's a criteria of wellness and opportunity that happens when we truly nurture ourselves that you were speaking to. And it was a brilliant post. Maybe you can fill in some of the gaps of what you were sharing there.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I remember when I wrote that, I was just felt inspired. I was like, you know, what is, you know, and what is depression really? And like, it's real and all that. And I understand it. And like, you know, for people that suffer it, but I also know that there's a lot of people that want to just jump into the box of this and just, I'm this, so I'm depressed. It's like, it's not that easy. It doesn't have to be like that. You know, like ask yourself the question, like, what have I actually done today? You know, like, and I put some things like, have I drank water? Have I moved my body? Am I surrounding myself with people that inspire me? Am I, am I doing something purposeful? Like, have I sweat? Have I gone out in nature? Like, there's a lot of things that we can do. And it's hard for me to comprehend or understand if you go through all of those things and you've done all of them and you've honestly done them all to feel depressed. And I get it. It happens. Right. But I really, cause I've been there before, and it's easy to just not do the things and just call yourself something. It's like, you're not depressed. You feel depressed. Like you feel that you're not that, and because the reason I did that post was because that's me. That's been me before. It's like, oh, I'm feeling depressed or I'm depressed. It's like, well, okay, but what did you do today? Oh yeah, right. Okay. I haven't done anything to right. It's the same thing what happens with people if you're trying to create a business or something. It's like, I suck, I'm not successful. It's like, what did you do today to do it though? Like what are the things that you did? And if you didn't do any of the things, well, you can't really get upset about it, right? And I think a lot of people would just rather call themselves something. It's easier. And really, like, they're not depressed. They're just not doing the things that are going to help them win. And it's a stressful world out there. We got to do the things to help give ourselves a chance. And there's a lot of opportunities, right? There's a lot of opportunities to do things to improve our situation. And yeah, I just kind of felt called to write that post, and
I love that.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the identity piece we were talking to. It's like, once you have a label, you really identify with it, and then you're defending it. And I can speak from personal experience with that too. Like, I do have a tendency to go there, and it has to be this conversation in my mind of like, what's actually going on. So I find questioning is like the best thing that we can do when we get into those states. Because I've noticed myself, and there's times where it's like, I want to be there because it gives me permission to really, like, put the blinds up, don't have to look at the world. I'm going to put the covers over my head because that's what I saw my mom doing most of her life. But then I have to, like, okay, wait, I don't want my kids to see me do that. So I uncover, take the covers off, come downstairs, do whatever, because I think those patterns are there. But if we start questioning why they're there, and if they're even ours, then we can shift that state completely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, Lance, we're coming close to the hour, and you've got some big things on the horizon. So we would love for you to share with our listeners what you're working on. Tell us about the summit. Tell us about the book. There's lots of stuff rolling out, and we're fans. We're cheering you on from the sidelines. But please tell us and share what's going on now.
Yeah. So when this airs, we just finished the pre-sale of the new book that I am writing called Mastering Adversity. We just hit our goal, which has been amazing.
Tell us the goal, brother. We want to celebrate.
Yeah, we hit 10,000. We're over now. I think we're at like 11,300, which has been like overwhelming support. And then that is like giving me so much more belief that, all right, people believe in me. I'm going to create the best book, the best. And it's just what I needed. It was another nudge, just like Mother Ayahuasca gave me that nudge. Sometimes we need them, right? And that just completed. Now we're going to be really focusing on University of Adversity Summit, which I was actually going to approach you guys on. I'd like to have you come on and speak in that, because it's going to be a lot of my past guests or some that haven't been on the show yet. And we're going to have 3 days of either one-on-one interviews and then a panel at the end. So there's going to be 45-minute panels at the end of each day. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring it's going to be a really transformational healing weekend of like really short interviews. And we're just going to hit hard. And yeah, I feel really called to create this event, and I want to do it every single year and bring people together of, spiritual, the alpha entrepreneurs, like all the people that are like doing the things that are having adversity in their life that come together and really inspire people. Because at the end of the day, it's that inspiration. It's that, helping in personal transformation, but then it's like, you got to provide tools to take action. And I think there's going to be enough speakers there that can provide those tools for the right person. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be virtual this year. It's going to be May 21st to the 23rd. We got some amazing speakers lined up already, and people are messaging me already to come speak. So it's like, it's really exciting. And I want, everybody to be a part of it. So all the information with that, you can just go to my Instagram link, my link in there, the link in the bio. And it's probably the easiest place to get access to like website and everything. So yeah, and if they're not on Instagram, just lanceessihos.com is
Awesome.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
we'll put that in the notes.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. My
Sure.
last question. If you don't feel called to answer it, you don't have to.
You're gonna make him answer it anyway.
Oh yeah, I'll answer.
Yeah. Well, I was going to speak to so all the learning that you've done in these years, and the few things that you've tuned into that are at the core of adversity and how we can support others. We've talked a lot about how we can move into addiction, we can move into these habits that will move us either to one path, or we can start questioning and go on to another. If you had your younger brother in front of you today, what are some things that you would say to him?
Oh, I would say it's going to be okay. Like the sun will shine tomorrow. I got you. I'm here for you. And that was the thing that's still hard for me, because, there's a lot of regret that I'm still working through, even though I know I can't do anything about it. I know it doesn't serve me, but like, there's a part of me that's like, if you could have been there for him, he probably could have pushed forward, but I wasn't. And I think that's why a lot, like having a podcast like this, if he had a tool like that, maybe he wouldn't have done that. But I would just, if I would give him a hug and just be like, it's okay. You got this. Things going to get better, and this is going to teach you, the challenges you're facing right now is going to help you later on in your life. So yeah, I would definitely have a sit down conversation with them, and, really have that conversation. So yeah, it's another great question.
Well, I think that it's moved you in this trajectory in your life where you're giving a big hug to thousands and thousands of people every day. Right? You're doing that for so many in the world now. And that forgiveness piece that we spoke to before is going to be so essential for more of your growth, so you can do more of that for those around you. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And yeah, just gonna do my best to show up and help where I can. So I just so grateful for you guys. Thank you for being you, being the light that you guys are. You guys are so amazing. I just love you so much.
No,
Yeah,
we
we
love you too
so much, buddy.
Yeah.
We're so proud of you, and like I said, we'll be cheerleading you on and supporting in any way that we can. So little message, everyone, make sure you check out Lance Essihos on Instagram. Check out the link tree that he's got available. Check out the upcoming book, the summit. As you can see, this guy's got a big heart. He's full of vulnerability and honesty and integrity, and it's a really powerful combination that you're delivering to the world. So we're grateful to you, brother.